Early access games are notoriously hard to talk about since we do not know what the final game looks like yet. It's a gamble, since for all we know, this is just what the game is going to be for the price of $15.99. Since indie games are hard to make, expensive, and soul-crushing, I sometimes don't mind putting down a little hard-earned cash to help the game get better. A good example of this is, of course, the smash indie hit Slime Rancher. I had bought the game back when there was only a handful of areas and slimes to go with it, but now it looks like there's robots and space slime? I really need to catch up on that game. Let's put a pin in that. So, yeah, fair warning. I'm going to be talking about how much I love Breathedge, but this is an early access game. The game runs from 4 to 6 hours long. There's only one game mode right now, and it's limited to one area of outer space, if that even makes sense. It's pointless to say it looks like the devs are still working on it because we know how that can go. Many devs will say that they're doing updates, but then the actual updates never happen. But for what it's worth, it's a fun little game as it is. You play a Russian who transports dead people through space. But, oh no, your ship blew up and now you need to survive the wreckage. Immediately, you're hit in the face with this absurd humor that really goes for it.
You've got great engineering skills. You have broken the antenna completely. Now you will need some special equipment and interphone activation codes, which are encrypted in the memory of the steering wheel if it's still intact.
These guys commit to being absolute dorks. Like this Aperture Science reject AI who talks in your ear, he reminds me of every dork I've ever talked to in the history of dorks. There's some clearly half-baked ideas that hopefully will get more love later, like a sexy hot single lady in my area, and the immortal chicken that does stuff. By the way, is this a rubber chicken with a pulley inside reference? Because, you guys, you know how much I love that joke. Still, there's enough that we get an immediate idea of what the tone of this game will be. I cringed at some of the jokes, but in a good way. I like that there's people trying to be funny in their games in 2019, even if it's really corny and cheesy sometimes. Like, if this doesn't make you smile, this game is not for you.
A damaged door scanner. You can scan the scanner with a scanner to record the scanner's damage data to the scanner protection system for emergency depressurization.
Jokes aside, the gameplay is what most people on the forums are calling Subnautica in space. You have to craft stuff to survive. Your backpack looks a lot like the one in Prey. There's a health bar along with food and water you have to keep an eye on, and various tools to make it so you can get to your objective. Also, you can pee? There's a pee function, and it's weird. After your spaceship crashed, you get a message which is clearly from Commander Shepard that your rescue ship is actually very far away. You find evidence that you might be able to help get them closer, but the captain's computer is, well, it's way over there and it's dripping in radiation. So you naturally go around trying to craft a nice suit, oxygen stations, and plenty of food so you can make that journey, way over there. You have a limited amount of air, so this game takes a slow and steady approach. I don't play a lot of survival games because they're scary and stressful, but when I was a kid, I used to play pretend survival, and it went a lot like Breathedge. In my backyard, I had a fort that I kept all my supplies in, and then I'd climb down, bucket in hand, off to collect as much resources as I could. My friend, who was at the top of the fort, was playing lookout, and she would ring the bell whenever she saw danger, and I'd run back inside with my bucket of chalk, sticks, and granola bar. Breathedge has the same concept, but instead of my friend ringing the bell, it's my oxygen alarm going off. It's not as stressful as it sounds. You know when you're going beyond your limits, and there's been points in the games where I've saved, purposely pushed myself outside, and saw how far I could go before I died alone in the cold.
You lie again. You are here. That means death was impossible. Tell truth.
There have been other times when I was sure I had the right gear and enough oxygen, so I saved and I made the journey with deep focus. And when I got where I wanted to, it felt like a real accomplishment. Honestly, most of the game is pretty relaxing. In fact, I spent a lot of it listening to audiobooks. I suggest Lady Killers by Tori Telfer, but I'd have to turn it off and focus when I wanted to try something daring. People have said that they found the slow floating around in space frustrating, but I liked it. The slow pace of simple movement in this game makes it for a more relaxed experience. The joy of crafting a bunch of stuff and throwing it around my cabin felt like I was a castaway on an island. And remember, this game takes place in space, so your brain has to learn how to map out up, down, left, and right. When you first start playing, you'll waste all of your oxygen trying to get one thingy. But then after a few hours, you can easily glide from zone to zone to get what you need. And like I said, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. The dark and silly tone make it so you can relax, chuckle, and figure out how to make lead paint.
Detected. Some of our clients are very sensitive about toilet talk, and therefore we included a dictionary filter which will replace the word feces with the word joy. Judging by the amount of joy around, this is the debris of the liner's public toilet. This means that there may be large reserves of water from the shower tanks nearby. The main thing is not to confuse them with liquid waste tanks.
I think other survival simulators can learn something from this. The world is crappy enough, so if I'm going to play a survival game, I like a little dorky robot in my ear cracking jokes about it. I was smiling to myself playing through this game more than any other survival I tried my hand at. And okay, so I'm not going to spoil the early access version of the ending because it's great, but the whole game is consistent in its vision and tone. Things don't necessarily get easier to craft, but you do get better at it. And I found myself making mental checklists of what I needed to do instead of just farting around in space. Even though farting around in space is super fun. I'm really excited for what they do next, and I can only hope it keeps getting weirder.
Judging by the degree of decomposition, this subject died long before the catastrophe. We have a murder here, Sherlock, and we just have to ignore it. It is unlikely that he suffocated from this, being in a spacesuit where oxygen is sufficient for an entire full breath.